Welcome to Russell Jones Speaks, where we explore big issues that matter to parents, grandparents, and kids. We tackle intergenerational issues. Everything that affects parents, grands, and children is on the table. That includes health and fitness, relationships, attitude, family unity, vision, adversity, God, and anything else that might arise. The goal is for you to take away something that you can use in your life immediately. I really want to help improve the lives of families, especially those with 10 to 13-year-old middle schoolers. Let's talk. Go to russelljonespeaks.com to get an amazing gift and then jump on a call with me. My guest today is Caprice Scott. Caprice is a life coach, minister, and faith coach who teaches others how to heal through mind renewal and relationship with Jesus. Caprice experienced her own healing in 2019 from a number of illnesses and autoimmune diseases that had left her bedridden and without hope. Until she had a revelation that God wanted her well, and he began walking her through a process that transformed her life. Caprice founded Caprice Scott Ministries, which includes a Facebook group, Healing is for You. She has authored the As One program and offers a variety of opportunities throughout her ministry for others to experience healing as she has. Caprice lives in Colorado with her husband, Richard. They enjoy hiking, camping, canoeing, cross-country skiing, and being parents to 3 ornery cats. It's the only kind I know. And I'd like to welcome Caprice. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, Russell. Thank you. Yes, Onra cats are pretty much the only kind of cats that exist. I agree.
That's good. That's good. Well, we met not that long ago. We've already had a couple of interesting conversations, and I'm really glad that you're available to come on and do this with me. Um, let's just fill in like the early days. I was born at an early age, that sort of stuff. Tell us a little bit about growing up.
Yeah, so I had two parents, a mother and a father. I think that's usually the way most of us start out. And I grew up basically, well, I was born in Texas, and my parents, I want to preface everything with I absolutely love my parents. I'm just going to say that, right? They're wonderful people. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, but I grew up in kind of a rough situation. Um, just a lot of negative stuff happened in my childhood. My dad had a rough time. He was an alcoholic, and I'm sure that a lot of your listeners know this, but something that I think that's really important for people to understand is when someone struggles with something like alcoholism, and we're just getting right to the meat and bones of this, right? When somebody struggles with alcoholism, it's usually because they have a lot of emotional internal issues. Oftentimes things happen to them in their past that they don't know how to deal with, and so they kind of self-medicate. And so I understand that about my dad now. I didn't whenever I was a kid, but so I grew up with that. And then whenever I was in school, I dealt with a whole lot of bullying, all through middle school. I mean, through elementary school, middle school, high school. In high school, I met a guy that I believed my dad would not like at all. So I dated him. Sometimes
Okay.
people do like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I ended up getting pregnant whenever I was 16. And that basically gives you an idea that my growing up years were pretty rough, and they were. There's just I'm going to skip over a whole lot of that. I'll just say I had a lot of emotional childhood trauma, a lot. And that affected me all throughout my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that I can so relate to everything you just said. And it's something. it's a reality, for so many. But again, we don't have to stay in it. We don't have to stay in our past, right? And
Yeah.
so, okay, so let's go. Let's just move up quick. Then I mean, we'll go straight to, like I said in the introduction, 2019, being really sick. When did the sickness start? Give us. You don't have to reveal your age, but like, when did the sickness start? You know, and what
Well,
happened?
I'm only 25. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I had dealt with all kinds of physical issues since childhood, and all the way up until, well, it just progressively got worse. After I actually married the guy that I got pregnant with his son, and I married him, and we had been married for, gosh, what was it? 16 years. And that was really rough also because I just want to say also he grew up in a really rough home. He had a lot of negative things happen to him. Oftentimes we don't understand why people believe or behave the way that they do, and usually there's a good reason for it. So the reason that my ex-husband was pretty messed up is because he had a really messed up childhood also. So we were married for 16 years, and it was a very toxic relationship. There was no physical abuse, I'll say that, but it was just a very unhealthy relationship, and that affected me in a negative way, as you can imagine as well. One thing that your viewers may or may not know is that it's very, very common for people who have grown up in childhood adversity and emotional trauma to later on in life get sick. And that's what happened to me. Whenever I was in, even though this math doesn't work out being 25 as I am, whenever I was in my 30s, I ended up getting sick. These things, more and more things started showing up. And in my 40s, I I remember my husband and I we were traveling around one weekend in Idaho, and one morning I woke up and tried to pick up a cup of coffee, and I couldn't. I couldn't hold it. My hands hurt so much, and my joints all over my body it was just extremely painful. And I was thinking, what on earth? Why is this going on? And this is, of course, after my divorce from my ex husband, and I remarried. Anyway, and these things started showing up. So I went to the doctor, found out that I had rheumatoid arthritis. And rheumatoid arthritis, of course, affects your joints. It makes them swell, it makes them hurt, it makes it so you just can't function. And so that was the beginning of knowing something was very, very wrong. I mean, I had lots of other things over the years, but this was at the point where it was like, wow, this is bad. And so after I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, more autoimmune diseases started showing up. Hypothyroidism, and then celiac, and severe issues with, oh gosh, man, I don't even have the list in front of me. I almost have to read every single thing that was wrong with me because it's crazy, you know. So one doctor thought I had Lyme disease, and I had severe EMF sensitivity, where I couldn't hold my phone. I couldn't be around any kind of electrical outlets. I couldn't stand, uh, Wi-Fi. I'd get headaches and feel awful in my body. Mold illness. I had mold illness. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. It was so many things. And so probably in about, um, it was probably in about a span of 10 years that all of these things started accumulating. All of these diseases and issues were coming up for me.
Were you were
And
you were you going to uh, like we call mainstream medical, or straight through, or were you maybe supplementing with any alternative stuff? Or that's kind of my one of my interests, right? You know,
right,
is to kind of own your own health. Where were you on that? Were you just, because I know there's certain points in time where we're just the doctor, we need the doctor, and we just yield to that. But then there's
right.
other times where it's kind of like, wait a minute, maybe I can be doing something in addition to that. Where were you, like, health wise, like that?
That's a fantastic question. So I was going to mainstream allopathic doctors at first. And I was going to all kinds of specialists, as you can imagine, because that's what they do. They send you this specialist and this and this and this. So I was going to all of these different doctors. And I started, I, what happened, one of the things that happened whenever I was going to them, of course, is they prescribe medications. So you start taking this medication, and I want to say this. There's a place for there's a place for allopathic medicine. Okay. I'm not going to just totally say it's absolutely totally horrible, but this is a big but one of the things that happened was every time they would prescribe a new medication for me, I would begin having more issues because one medication would lead to something else, another problem. Oh, you have this problem. So we're going to give you this medication to deal with this issue that this medication created. And it continued to go on like that until at one point I was on 13 different medications at one time. Yeah, you can imagine. What a mess. So I started looking into, and at the time I was also, I'll say I was vegan. So I've always been health conscious.
Wait a
Always.
minute, wait a minute. You were vegan? I didn't
I
know that
was.
about
I'm
you.
not now.
I didn't know that about you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I know. You wouldn't
Not,
talk to me otherwise, right?
not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. I get it. I was vegan because I believed that that was the healthiest thing for me to do. I know better now. I know better. But so it was like, well, okay, there's always got to be an alternative to this. And so I started looking at alternative medicine. I started going to naturopaths, and, they told me, okay, you need to change your diet. If you change your diet, you can get off of these medications that you're taking for the autoimmune diseases. So I changed my diet. Here's what happened, though, Russell, is that this seemed like a good alternative for a while because I was able to basically mitigate some of the issues that I was dealing with physically by, through diet. It got to the point that my health deteriorated even while being on these special diets. And to the point that I got down to being able to only tolerate 5 foods. So the more that I tried to change my diet in order to heal, the more I narrowed down what I was able to handle. And so I don't forget, I want to share this. One of the reasons why, and this is what I started learning in 2019 after I started healing, one of the reasons why that happened is that what we fear will control us in not a good way, right? And I was fearful. I was fearful of food. I was fearful of experiencing symptoms. I was fearful of these things. And so it was like, okay, I can't eat this because it affects me this way. And so I made certain kinds of associations with, well, this food makes my joints hurt. This food messes up my digestion. This food affects my skin. And so I started making all of these associations because that's what our brains do,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so I made these associations and became so afraid of food that it got to the point that it didn't matter what I was putting in my system. I was messed up all the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think
And so
I think
I was on medications. Go ahead.
no, I just think that the way the good Lord made us, um, that there's very few foods that an individual, a healthy individual, can't tolerate, or that the body won't adjust to. The body will adjust to certain things. I mean, there have been times when, people in extreme conditions and they had limited food, but they were able to perform. They were able to do everything because their bodies figured it out. But like you said, when the mind won't, because it all starts in the mind, right? I mean, it all starts there, So anyway, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that's an interesting thing
No.
that all the
eh,
different foods, yeah,
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I mean, we all should be able to tolerate almost anything, right? I totally agree. But our brains and our, not just our brains, but our beliefs are so powerful. And I think we're going to talk more about that as we go on. But that's the problem, is that I had all of these negative beliefs and these negative associations about food and about everything. Oh, I can't be around this because it'll make me feel bad. I can't do this because it'll make me feel bad. I can't wash my clothes in regular detergent because it'll make me feel bad. I can't be around candles because they'll make me feel bad because I had, multiple chemical sensitivity. I mean, just on and on and on. So it's like I was a prisoner. And the more things that I feared, the more things had that control over me. I was in bondage, basically, to all of these things in my life where I had no freedom anymore to be able to do anything. And because of that fear, I continued to get more and more sick. And finally, I went to an integrative medicine doctor. I started seeing him in 2018. And I had gotten to the point where I was very, very weak, extremely ill. I couldn't I couldn't handle going anywhere, doing much of anything. I had severe adrenal fatigue, and chronic fatigue syndrome, where it was just like exhausting to walk across my house. And before, something that about me was that I live in Colorado, as you mentioned. Years ago, like 20 years ago, I was climbing Colorado 14ers. Those are Colorado mountain peaks. I was climbing, these mountains. I was super healthy before. But I got to the point where even in 2019, it got so bad that as you mentioned, I was bedridden. I was crawling through my house to get from one room to another because I was so weak and sick. And I honestly got to a point, it was um, February 14th of 2019, I got to a point where it was like, I'm not going to survive this. And I knew that the way that things were going, I knew that I was not going to live if this
yeah.
continued. And
How long can
honestly,
how long can you go like that? That's like,
well, when you finally get to when you get to the point where it's just like, I don't even want to live like this anymore, you know, again, it comes back to belief. It comes back to belief. And I thought that I wasn't going to survive. And this integrative medicine doctor, um, he was trying everything. I mean, he was, he had me on supplements. I was spending probably more than $500 a month on supplements. Yeah, and I was having to go to him once a week. My husband would take time off every single Wednesday. We would drive an hour away so that I could go see this guy. He would give me IVs of glutathione to try to get my liver to start detoxing, because he found that I had 4 genetic mutations that wouldn't allow my body to detoxify at all. So I was just walking around totally toxic. And that's on top of all of the other stuff, that I was dealing with at the time. He told me, uh, let's see, he said, he called my husband in May. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to February 14th of 2019, if I may. That was the day that everything changed, because like I said, I was in bed. I was very sick, and I was afraid every single time that I fell asleep, which was rare. I'll tell you that. It was rare for me to fall asleep, except for being on some kind of medication. I was on benzodiazepines in order to sleep at that point. And then the doctor decided to cut me off of those. Don't ask me what happened. He cut me off of those cold turkey. So not only was I very, very sick, but I thought I was losing my mind, because you don't do that with benzos. You have to slowly taper off of them over a number of years, usually. But my doctor cut me off cold turkey. So I thought I was just, yeah, how am I going to survive? I can't handle the way I'm thinking. I can't handle the way I'm feeling. I can't live like this anymore. And I told God, I told him that day, Lord, if you're going to take me, do it quickly. But if you're not, I need you to give me a sign that you're going to pull me out of this. And I asked for something specific. I had a past of God giving me doves as a sign for some things. And so that day I said, I need for you to give me a sign. And at the time even though I wasn't able to work it right then, I was a potter. I used to be an artist, a professional artist. And so I was in bed, of course, and I said, okay, Lord, give me a sign, give me a dove somehow. And so I was scrolling through Instagram, and within 10 minutes, I came across another potter, and his picture was his own hand, and there was a tiny clay dove, a pure white clay dove in his hand. And I knew that was for me. One, because this was a potter holding a dove in his hand, and God had given me Isaiah 64:8. Previously, a couple of years before, I put it on all of my pottery. It says, you, O Lord, are the potter. We are the clay. We are the works of your hands. And so I knew that that was God telling me, I'm going to
Wait a
pull you
minute,
out of
wait a
this.
minute, wait a minute. I got a question. Get, bring us, okay, so we got your physical journey, we got your emotional journey, we got a lot of your career. Bring us up, the start of your spiritual journey to this place too. So it all comes together at once for me. What, were you a baby Christian? Were you raised a Christian? Like when did that all come into play?
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, I actually grew up attending church. I think that I hope it's safe for me to say this. I think it's very common for many people who say that they are Christians to attend church once a week and not really know God. Is it safe for me to
Uh,
say that? Okay.
it's like it's so common.
And yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's kind of a social club, you know?
Well, I think too, it's people, you know, people are looking for something and they're hoping that this is the place to be. So they just might be in a season where they have to grow into a faith, their own
Yeah.
personal faith. But, I mean, if you're going to hang out somewhere, it's probably a little bit safer, hopefully, than, the local bar or something like that. So,
True. It's true. Very true. Absolutely. So I I grew up attending church, but it was kind of that way in that my family, while they were Christians, it wasn't like we sat around and read our Bibles at home or anything like that during the week, you know? So, but with me, I was always hungry for God. Even from my childhood, I knew there was something more. There was something more about him that I wanted, more so than what I had seen, in my parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins and whatever. And so I would, in even whenever I was a total disaster in my teenage years, I would still go to youth group because I I knew I wanted God. I just nobody knew how to teach me how to know him. That was the
yeah,
problem,
yeah, yeah.
right? So I had grown up with that, and yeah, I mean I continued to attend church, and I had always tried to have devotions in some way or another. So I wasn't a baby Christian when all of this was going on, but I still, how do I say this? I was not spirit filled. I was not Holy Spirit filled at that point. Not in the same way.
I get it. I get it.
Okay.
It took me 10 years from the day I got saved to just even recognizing what the availability of the Spirit, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that was definitely um, what was happening with me. Is it was just there's that constant hunger, but it was like, God is way up here and I can't really connect with him the way that I want to or whatever. So whenever he gave me that sign, that dove, I knew that he was going to pull me out of it. But a couple of days later, a couple of days after that, obviously, I was thinking, wow, he's going to just heal me miraculously, maybe. It didn't happen like that. It didn't happen that way. And I was a little bit disappointed. But who wouldn't be, right? Right. But a couple of days later, I told him, I said, Lord, if you're not just going to pull me out of this so that I just kind of feel better, but if you're going to heal me completely, I need to see a dove every single day until I experience that. Man, I know, Caprice, you can't talk to God like that, right? But I
Nice.
did. I
Yes.
did. And I'll tell you what, Russell, God is so, I don't want to start crying, but he's so good. He's so incredible and loving. He did that for me. He did that for me. He was showing me doves every single day. And people were hearing about this and how I was like, okay, God, I'm trusting you that I'm going to heal. And people would send me cards in the mail that had doves on them, or or I would receive, junk mail even that had doves. It was amazing. It was just so I was always seeing doves. Well, in March, the following month, I went back to my doctor and he was looking at all of these test results that I had. And he told me, how did he do it? So my husband was with me And the doctor pulled his chair up next to us, and he put his head in his hands, and he was rocking back and forth, and he said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Your test results." Yeah, I know. Right? Not good. So I was a little bit freaked out, but he said, "There's nothing that anybody can do for you at this point because all of your test results are off the charts bad. I have never seen anything like this before in my life." So I was like, okay. But you know what? God had given me that promise the month before. And if he had not given me that promise the month before that I was going to heal, I probably wouldn't be here today, right? So after that, the doctor said, "There's one thing that maybe might help you." He said, "Did you by chance have any kind of emotional trauma in childhood?" I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. You know, so he told me about something called brain retraining. And so I went home, I prayed about it. I said, "Okay, Lord, if this is your answer for me, then I need for you to pay for this program that the doctor told me about." And so because I wasn't working, my husband, of course, has a job and had a job then, but I wanted to know that this was God's will for me, right? I guess it was within 48 hours, my husband, who is also a church organist, and not just organist. I mean, he plays guitar and keyboard and can lead worship, stuff like that. But he also is an organist, and he had 2 phone calls within 48 hours where they wanted him to play for several services. And the people who hired him to do that paid him more than the regular amount, to the point that it covered this whole program that I was looking at. So it was like, okay, I know that this is what God wants because it happened within, a very short time period, and they paid so much and they didn't have to, right? So I ordered the program. I got started, and I want to say a lot of people will say, "Oh yes, okay, so Caprice, we need to know what the brain retraining program was that you did." What's important for everyone to understand is that, yes, God gave me that brain retraining program. One of the reasons is because he knew that I was not in a mental space where I would have believed that he wanted me well. Not at that point. Because I believed, based on my upbringing and based on the church that I was attending at that time, and I will say it was very wrong doctrine, I thought that God wanted to punish me, and that the only way that I could be saved was that he was punishing me by allowing me to get sick.
Oof. That's a heavy burden. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go to church to, for them to tell me, "Oh, you're doing everything right," but I don't go to
Right.
get condemned either, right? So it's a big
Right.
difference, right? It's a big
Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
It really is. And so that's basically the mindset that I had, was that God was angry with me and I needed to do something to, appease him, or that he needed to punish me or whatever. And he started showing me that's not who he is at all. Right? So he started teaching me through the brain retraining program that I needed to change my thinking, that I needed to change the way that I was speaking, that I needed to change how I was using my imagination. And I had some big heart beliefs, that core beliefs, that needed to be changed. Because when we experience emotional trauma in childhood, we develop yucky negative core beliefs. And that was a big part of my problem.
Wow. Okay. So how long then did it take you to, get up to a functioning physical level? All right, from that February date forward, was it just it was gradual? I'm guessing, right? It was.
It was. It
How
was
long did
gradual.
it take you? How long did it take you to get out of bed? How long did it take you to like walk normal?
So I started walking around my house, and then I determined within probably a couple of weeks that I was going to start taking walks with my husband. And this is the power of belief. This is what's so important, because people think, well, whatever is happening in my body is my truth. No, it doesn't have to be. We have the ability to change what is happening in our body by changing our thinking. And it can actually happen very quickly. So within a couple of weeks, I told my husband, because I still wasn't sleeping very well and I was getting up at like 5 a.m. I'm like, let's just go for a walk at 5 a.m. And so he would get up and he would go for a walk with me. And we started walking a little bit farther, a little bit farther, a little bit farther. And, people say, oh, so you felt great. No, I hope I can say this. No, I felt like crap.
Right.
Physically, I felt like crap. But the whole time I was going, I feel great. I'm choosing to feel amazing. I feel fantastic. And I told myself that. And you know that, what is it? Is it James Brown? I Feel Good. You know that song?
Yes.
I'm not going to sing it.
I'm
But
not gonna.
anyway.
I'm not gonna sing it either. Oh.
So, yes. But I would sing that in my head over and over and over. I was telling myself that I feel good. And I was singing that in my head while I'm walking. And when those negative thoughts would come, no, I feel like crap. I'm like, no, I don't. I feel fantastic. And so I continued to retrain my brain and my thinking. And as I changed my thinking, my body started lining up with what I was telling it. No, I feel fantastic. I can do this. And the same thing kind of happened with food and everything else. When you stop fearing things, you regain your freedom.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how
So
long till 100%?
so how long? Right. So it took this is important because like I said, I was bedridden. Probably by July, I was hiking again. I remember my husband and I went out and we did a 9-mile hike. And I'm not talking flat. I'm talking we were in the mountains and I did a 9-mile hike. The whole time I'm going, I feel great. I feel great. My body's going, no, we don't. Yes, we do. I feel great. And before I added in all of the foods, it was 2 years. It took me 2 years. And here's why. I was more afraid of food than a lot of the other things. I was afraid of how food was going to affect me. And so I had to slowly and gradually like use my imagination. I did that a lot. I would imagine being able to eat pizza and imagine that it was fantastic and that I felt amazing, and I changed associations. Changing associations is very important. So I changed my associations with food, but it took me a little bit longer because of the fear.
Yeah. It's the temptation is to oversimplify what you went through. The temptation is, oh, if I just start speaking positively, I'll be fine. But somebody hearing that is not feeling what you felt when you were speaking those words. and the feelings that you were actually experiencing, right?
Right.
And it's like you're speaking promises as a child of God, right? You're speaking, um, you know, what you consider your healing,
Yeah,
the message you got, um,
absolutely.
and so it all comes together. I mean, if there was no faith and belief, I mean, you really even have to start there, right? I mean, you can't even if you didn't believe in God, I don't think you could. I don't think you could pull in up the belief and you could pull up the faith without that the initial belief in God, right? I mean,
Yeah.
somebody just can't walk around, I don't think, and just say, "Oh, I'm special, I'm great, I'm good, I'm strong, I'm healthy," and it just happened, right? It's like that's
Right.
an aspect, right? I mean, that was like the biblical
Right.
thing, right? You're snared by the words of your mouth,
Yeah.
right? You're hung by your tongue, that sort of that sort of thing. But
Right.
that's an aspect, right, of what you went through. But it's powerful,
Exactly.
right? The tongue is a creative force, right? So
Yes. Yes. It
yeah,
really is.
that's cool. Cool. Now, okay, so I don't know if everybody else is hearing this right now, but there's one more issue. You're out, you're hiking, you're doing things, you're feeling good, you're feeling strong, but there's one more thing that's going on physically for you right now, right?
Yes. This one, I know that God has already promised me it's coming back. But one of the things that has been an issue for me since, well, my parents noticed it when I was about 5, was that I had a severe hearing loss. And that has gotten progressively worse over the years to the point that I am.
Do you think that the bullying that happened to you had anything to do with your hearing when you were a kid, or that was maybe something else?
It's an interesting question. I There have been a lot of people who have said that, but like I said, whenever I was 5, my parents noticed it. I actually think that it has to do. This is my opinion. Doctors think that I am a total enigma. They don't understand where this has come from. I mean, I'm an enigma, yes, but this hearing loss too, right? So they don't understand where that came from, and I I think that it started in the womb. And many doctors believe that as well, that it happened before I was born. And so, again, there was a lot of strife at home between my parents at the time whenever my mom found out that I was pregnant, or she was pregnant with me. And so, my dad always teased me that I was his motorcycle because he wanted a motorcycle, and instead he found out my mom was pregnant, you know. So it's okay. We can laugh at it. Yeah, it's okay, you know.
Oh no, no. Okay.
No, it's okay. It really is. But so God has promised me, though, He has given me promise after promise that I will hear again. And so this is not just about changing changing the way well, it is about changing the way that I think. Obviously, I have to get to a point where I receive what He's already promised. But I do want to, if I may, I want to backtrack just a little bit regarding the brain retraining. One of the things that God revealed to me was, well, two things. As I mentioned, brain retraining doesn't cover this. Brain retraining doesn't say, well, you have hardcore beliefs that you need to change. That's something that the Holy Spirit revealed to me, that I was going to need to change those core beliefs so that I would agree with who God says that I am rather than what the world has said, right? And not only that, but I had to forgive. Forgiveness is huge when it comes to healing. And I had so much hurt and bitterness, and my entire outlook was as a victim. I had victim mentality, like, I mean, it was gross. And that was something that the Holy Spirit started showing me is, listen, you are one with Jesus. You are victorious because he has overcome the world. And he says that you have too. You have to become that. You have to agree with who I say that you are instead of saying, oh, but I'm a poor, pathetic victim. Because as long as we pretend or see ourselves, I wouldn't say pretend, as long as we see ourselves as victims, we will remain victims.
Oh yeah. And that's where the enemy wants us, right? I mean,
Yes.
in
Yeah.
all of these altered states, right? I mean, that's the goal. Yeah, my wife just and I just recently we just saw the Screw Tape Letters performance of it, and that's those type of attacks on humans. It's very 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 real uh, if you study at all. Um, and that's a side, right, of Christianity. Sometimes it's left out. Is that's which is powerful, and we need to recognize. So yeah, so this is okay. So the hearing, the physicality. At what point then did you start working with other people? Um, like, was the brain retraining? Was that a Christian thing, or was that just a neurologic event?
So the brainwave training was all about, as far as the program that I used, it was a secular program. But as I mentioned, the Holy Spirit started showing me, no, I want you to change the way that you're using this. I want you to invite me into it. And so I would do there a lot of brainwave training uses visualizations. So I would use visualizations where I would use my imagination and I would create things. Like I said, I would imagine being able to eat different foods. I would imagine being able to hike before I could hike. So I would see myself hiking, and I would also use those thoughts that the imagination, and pair those things with emotions, not this, oh, okay, yeah, but it was like, yes, I can do this, I'm so excited. And when we pair our thoughts and imaginations and emotions, that changes our brain chemistry, which is also going to change how our bodies function, right? And so yeah, so that's what I was doing. And the Holy Spirit was saying, now I want you to also incorporate all of these promises in my word. And so I started seeing myself as, like I said, as victorious. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. That God had a plan and a purpose for my life. One of the things that I started imagining, because I told God, I said, okay, you know what, Lord, you are bringing me out of this and you are helping me heal. This is my purpose. I want to help other people heal. I want to do this. And so I started imagining things like what you and I are doing right now, Russell. I started visualizing, seeing myself give my testimony to the world. I started imagining teaching people what God has taught me about healing. Because when we have negative thoughts about ourselves, we self destruct. We really do. And God started showing me that. This is not how I want you to think. I want you to think differently. I want you to think in a way that you agree with me, like I said. And I mean, he basically, in Deuteronomy, he basically begs us to choose life. But we do that, as you mentioned, with our tongues and with our thoughts. And so, yeah, I started imagining having these kinds of conversations and speaking to big groups of people. And a couple of years down the road, I mean, it wasn't immediately, it didn't happen in 2019 or 2020, but I think it was possibly 2021. The Holy Spirit started telling me that he wanted me to start a YouTube channel. And this is from a girl who failed speech class because she is a total shy introvert. But I imagined being able to do this. And it's like, this is for God. I'm going to be able to do it. He's going to help me. And so I started doing these videos and people started watching. A couple of people reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you coach me?" I told the Lord, I said, "If you want me to coach people, you have to show me." And so these people reached out to me and said, "Hey, will you coach me?" And it was like, "Oh, okay, you know." And so then I started thinking, well, what if I go a little bit bigger for a bigger audience to help more people? So I created this ministry, Caprice Scott Ministries, and yeah, that's what I do. I want people, first of all, I want people to know the goodness of God. Because if we think that God is not good, we're going to be terrified of him, and that's not going to help us heal at all.
The yeah, it's I just always love the stories of you know, people that have these experiences and they go from, you know, I was that person. I mean, I don't ever remember raising my hand in school. I was I jumped into education my last year of college only because well, there was that's a whole other situation, but I had to get in front of my classmates, that people that I knew, and just give a short presentation. I thought I was going to die. I mean, my sweat dripping off me. I was such a mess. And but then when you know, years later, you know, this whole thing, I've been on stages, live presentations, and uh, it it just cracks me up that, you know, that God just emboldens us, but then somehow gives us the strength to do it, right? And because I mean, right, that's one of the biggest fears that anybody has is fear of public speaking, right? Fear of getting in front of other people. And so yeah, so cool. So the title life coach minister. So then we say sculptor of faith through biblical mind renewal and relationship with Jesus. So okay, so I didn't understand what sculptor meant, but that's who you you are a sculptor. You've
Yeah,
always been a sculptor, right?
I
Yeah,
have. I'm an artist.
yeah, very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, now it's all coming together in my little brain. That's good. So all right, so we have some topics that, you know, we had talked about previous, and I think we've touched on these things already. You know, how do we trust God? Uh, you know, that was like when you have your new people coming into the group, like and reaching out to you, or you're coaching someone, you know, and they ask that question, you know, how do you get to that point of trusting God? Like okay, I mean, you know, it all sounds wonderful. I want to do it, but like it, how do I get there? What do you say to people?
That's a really fantastic question. And it was something, like I said, that I struggled with for a long time because I didn't trust him, because I didn't think he was good. One of the biggest problems is that we're taught wrongly about who he is. I mean, and I hope that your listeners will hear what I'm saying. When I say this, it is not meant to be offensive at all. But religion is not relationship. And religion has been created by man. And a whole lot of religion is based on wrong beliefs. I mean, a whole lot of religion has been based on ancient Rome and Greek beliefs that have influence. And you look at ancient Rome and you look at ancient Greek, and they both had all of these gods that were not true, but those things influence how we see the God of heaven, how we see God, and he's not anything like that at all. So the most important thing is getting a new lens. You know, we have to see God through the correct lens before we can learn how to trust him. when we see him through the correct lens, when we start reading the Word of God through a different lens and a different mindset, we're going to start realizing, oh my gosh, all of these laws and rules that he's given us, it's not about you better do this, you better do that, or I'm going to strike you down. It's about God is all about love and relationship, and his laws are all about relating to him and to others, to each other in love, in unity. And it's a beautiful thing.
It is. But there's a lot of mean people in this world.
Yeah, for sure. You're not wrong.
I think too, like when I came to the Lord, it was out of desperation, really. I had tried everything else to make me happy because I thought that's what
Yeah.
you're supposed to be, right? And so it was just kind of like, well, I might as well try Jesus. It was just kind of like, I tried everything. I tried this drug. I tried this. I tried these combinations.
Mm-hmm.
I had the motorcycle that your dad wanted. I did all those things, right? And it was like, so the period it took me to mature, because there was no foundation before that, and it was a long period, but we had this tragic event happen. It was three years or so after. Oh, I'm sorry. It's about 5 years after I become a Christian. But I didn't go to church. I had gone to church as a kid, and I'm not blaming the church, but I had some really negative experiences in my life, and the culprit was God, but it really wasn't God. It was some of the intermediaries that I was dealing with. And so, anyway, long story short, there was no foundation. So I wouldn't. I, I was at an event and I gave my life to the Lord, but I couldn't go to church because I remembered all those people at church. I mean, they were mean. They were judgmental. And so when this event happened in '87, we lost a son in a car crash. Almost lost my wife. I can take up everybody's time with all the details, but it was it was tragic, and I wasn't going to church. I was watching Robert Schuller's Hour of Power. Everybody's too young to remember that, and there was a guy, I think his name was David Price from California. On after that, I was watching TV. I couldn't read the Bible. I didn't know. I just couldn't read the Bible, and I was reading other books. I was reading kind of textbooks and stuff and everything about God, but I wasn't in the Word even. And here this event happens, and I'm supposed to be a Christian, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Like a lot of bad things happened in my life before that, but this was like huge. And I'm like, God, wait a minute. I mean, talk about, is it okay to say this? I mean, I was yelling at God, like, what the heck? I mean, this isn't what I signed up for. This is torturous. And so, but again, the grieving process got my attention, like big time, physically, emotionally, on every level. People started showing up that I didn't even know it came into my life, speaking things into my life, speaking into my wife's life. And so, that started this tremendous journey. And, I had to stop blaming God for my quote unquote bad luck or being punished. And, but I didn't, my Holy Ghost experience, my experience with the Holy Spirit, it took 10 years. I was like 10 years I was a Christian before I got that, and it was so, as we're talking here and it, sharing all these experiences, there's such a cumulative effect of everybody's life experience comes together. So like, when you're dealing with somebody that's just, Caprice, I've had such a hard life. And my everything hurts. I'm taking this medication. My kids are a mess. My husband's a disaster. My mom and dad just died. With all these things, like, Caprice, can you encourage me somehow? Like what would you say to somebody a mess like that? Because I mean, I don't know. Like what would you say? Because I know you have a lot of people that rely on you and your team for encouragement, for instruction. What would you say to somebody like that, right?
Yeah, great question. You know, first of all, I would say God absolutely hates that these things happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, religion tells us God is in control of everything, and everything that happens because God made it happen. I don't believe that. Again, like you mentioned before, we have an adversary in the world, and he is all about, John 10 says that the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy. But Jesus came that we might have life and have it abundantly. Abundant life is not about all of the loss and other crap that happens to us. That's not abundant life. That's not what Jesus is about. That's not what he wants. But all of these icky, yucky, gross things that the enemy does when he steals and kills and destroys, God can take the nasty things that happen and he can turn them around for our good and his glory. That doesn't mean he wants those bad things to happen. A lot of times we assume, and this is more of a based on kind of an ancient Greek philosophy, that fate, there's this fate and it's God's will if these things happen. And that's just not true. God has given us authority here on this earth. A lot of times we make stupid choices and we reap the consequences, or other people make stupid choices and we reap the consequences. That doesn't mean that God did it, right?
Right.
And usually, whenever I am speaking with people, I'm telling them, God loves you. He's crazy about you. He loves you so much that he sent Jesus to become one of us. I mean, God didn't just send Jesus to just fix the problem and leave. Jesus became our brother in flesh and blood, you know? And he wanted to relate to us and show us what he's like, because God didn't know how else to get through to us. He's really, really good. So I start trying to show people, and help them, like I said, give them a new lens of how to see God. Oh, he's crazy in love with you. And he can take all of these yucky negative things and he can turn them around for your good. But you have to be willing. And again, it kind of goes back to that. Am I going to continue to see myself as a victim of all of life's circumstances? Or am I going to say, I am so done with what the devil has been doing in my life. I am going to stand up to him just like Jesus tells us to, because Jesus says, I've already overcome him. And we are told that as he is, so are we in this world. So I have the authority. Jesus gave it to me. He said, I have given you authority to trample over snakes and scorpions and all the power of the enemy. So
Right.
we have to stand in that and say, no more. You know what? My life is not going to be dictated by what this, and I'll just say, the devil wants to try to do to me. I am standing up, taking that authority and saying, absolutely not. I am going to change my life. Here's something, I want to say this real quick. Well, it just crossed my mind. A huge part of our culture, our culture is all about me, not me in particular, but about people, about themselves.
Right.
The culture is all about me, 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 me. selfies and all about what I do and my happiness and whatever. And this may come as a big shock for people, but God is other centered. And he
Right.
wants us to be other centered. Jesus said that people will know us by our love. And that's not very popular in the world today. People loving everybody, no matter how they behave, right? But when we understand how much God loves us, and we receive that, and we start valuing ourselves, what were the two greatest commandments? Jesus said, love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. Russell, you know what? There is no possible way that we can love God without understanding how much he loves us. So that's the first thing, right? We've got to know and receive that love. And secondly, love your neighbor as yourself. I cannot love my neighbor until I understand the value and love God has for me. And it is through that love and that experience that I have with him that this love overflows to other people, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's a hard thing for a lot of people in the culture. As long as we are, we're supposed to be in the world but not of the world, we've got to get out of the world mindset of everything's got to be about me.
Yeah. The mindset is huge. Um, I want to read this one thing from again, one of my all-time heroes, C.S. Lewis, and
Yeah.
just maybe we can just talk about this real quick, because I think a lot of times we look around at what we think others have, and we look at what we think we don't have. So let me just read this real quick. Most people, if they really if they had really learned to look into their own hearts, would know that they do want, and want acutely, something that cannot be had in this world. There are
Yeah.
all sorts of things in this world that offer to give it to you, but they never quite keep their promise. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. Lewis continues, probably probably earthly pleasures were never meant to satisfy it, but only to arouse it, to suggest the real thing. If that is so, I must take care, on the one hand, never to despise or be unthankful for these earthly blessings, and on the other, to never to mistake them for the something else, of which they are only kind of a copy or an echo or a mirage. I must keep alive in myself the desire for my true country, which I shall not find until after death. I must never let it get snowed under or turned aside. I must make it the main object of life to press on to that other country and to help others do the same. So, sorry for butchering it a little bit. C.S. Lewis really, I think, captures, we have this longing that really, I mean, I know people that have more money than they could spend in 10 lifetimes. I'm not one of them, but I know I've been around their personal lives. It just doesn't come close to being satisfying. They travel the world, eat anything, do anything, buy anything. It just does not. And I think for your patient, right? For somebody that's sick, for somebody that's healing, for somebody that's just trying to do all the right things, that's under this burden all the time. Like you said, it's a mindset. It's thinking that we can get to a place on this earth where everything is ah no, we can have those moments, but it doesn't stay there, right? It's like up. The next day, I just stubbed my toe, and I'm going, So there's always, uh, there's always going to be that, and it just took me so long to get to. I mean, I've read that. That's out of Mere Christianity. I've read that book 14 times already with underlines, everything else, and it's still it stuff dawns on me, going, oh, the depth of that wisdom, right? I mean, but to get everybody there, right? I mean, it's all these aspects of life. It's mindset, but we also have to do the other things, right? We have to take care of the one body we have, right? We have to nurture all these different things. So, and that drives me crazy too. Like when you're talking about your nutrition and diet and everything. I mean, exercise, all these things. Like, sometimes we get like, we get so holy that we just ignore the practical, as the gifts that God gives us. We ignore, and we do all the wrong things. So anyway, so I'm sorry, just to go off on a thing, but like you're saying, the mindset. It's I wrote I did a thing. I used to go into the prisons, youth prisons, and I used to talk about hearing God. And I don't want to step on any of your beliefs here, but this was like, I'd been a Christian for like 19 years, and it took me all these years to figure this out, like hearing God, right? And I put together a thing I used to give to the kids in prison, and there's music, spiritual music, that a couple of my friends, Mike Dacey and Roger Bryson, did, and there's just like these simple things that you can do, but you got to know God's voice. You got to know what he says. That's why the word is so important, right? You might think you heard God, but if it doesn't line up with his word, then it didn't come from God, right? So I can make that available to anybody that wants that. The music is awesome. Just a meditative thing, and the steps. If anybody wants that, that's fine. They can reach out to me. But what you the program that you offer, tell us a little bit about that. I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it.
It's
It
actually called As One.
as one,
And
right, right.
it's based on, if you look at John chapter 17, where Jesus is praying for his disciples, but he's also praying for all of us who are going to believe in the future. And
Mm,
he's telling the Father, I want them to be as one, as you and I are as one, and I want them to be as one with us. And so it's this total circular, let us all be unified and together in this wonderful love relationship, because that's what God is all about. I mean, that's who God is. He's so full of love. He is, like I said, he's other centered, and it's all about this love and relationship. So as one is something that he and I'm going to say he did. He told me that he wanted me to write this program. I told him whenever in 2019, I want to create a Christian brain retraining program. And he basically led
mm,
me to write this. And instead of being, and I know this is hard for a lot of people, there's not a whole lot of science in it, because I wanted it to be biblically based. I wanted it to be about getting to know God. But all of the tools that I used in healing are in that program, all
mm,
of them. From, as you were mentioning, what we speak and how we think and our imaginations and our choices and our heart beliefs and forgiveness is huge. And so all of those things are incorporated in the program. And whenever I first created it, I decided I'm going to put it online and it's going to be free, which was crazy because it's a lot. It's a 14-week program. It's a
oh, wow.
big program. But basically what it is I created videos, and there's transcripts, and people can go through the program. They can download some of the applications, or I have in there a toolkit so they can use the tools if they use those tools. Here's the thing. And I'm going to say again, our culture is all about information. And we kind of a little bit touched on that. We're all about consuming information.
Yeah.
But healing comes through relationship. It's not just about gathering all of this information. Well, I know all of this just because, I could say, Russell, I can look at you and you're wearing a black t-shirt and you have silver hair and you've got these pictures behind you and I can make assumptions on who you are based on those things. That's information, but that's not a relationship.
Right.
And relationship with God is similar in that we gather a lot of this information. We have all of this information about him, but that's not the same as you were mentioning, hearing him and relating to him as a person, as a being. And so that's why I created As One, is I wanted people to learn to have the kind of experience that I did. God, what I was mentioning, whenever I was a kid, I was always looking for a relational God, but I had information and nobody could teach me how to have a relationship with him. In 2019, he taught me how to have a relationship with him. He taught me what it meant to be this experiential relationship. And so that's the point of As One. And I
Do,
wanted to help people know how to really connect with them. I mean, even have stuff in there about Bible studies and stuff.
do you now? Do you ever? So it's self. Excuse me. It's self-directed, or do you have people? I know. I think I saw you had a team of people. Do are people available to help to hold people's hands if they need to, virtually?
Yes, as a matter of fact. So people do go through it on their own. But in my ministry, I have an incredible team of ladies who we call the As One activated leaders. And they meet once a week so that people can have accountability. If you want to go through the program and you want to talk about, okay, Caprice said this in the program, what does it mean? Or how do I do that? Or whatever. These women are so on fire for Jesus. They do this their own time. They're not getting paid for it or anything, but they love the Lord and they love people and they want to help. And so they do this with them. And we have that in the ministry. And we also, right now, we're doing a fantastic book study. It's a series that's going to go on for quite a while, but we try to offer a lot of different things. I'm currently writing another program that's all about a relationship with Jesus. As a matter of fact, it's called The Covenant, and he started showing me some really beautiful things about ancient Jewish wedding traditions and how all of this ties into our relationship with him that most of us have no clue about. I mean, when Jesus is talking in the Bible, he's obviously talking to Jews who knew all of this stuff.
Right.
We've missed out on a lot of that, right? And so I've been studying this and I'm creating this new program that's all about that. You mentioned as far as One, and I hope it's okay for me to mention this, it's actually been acquired by a publisher. And so it's going to be coming out as a book in a couple of months. And I'm really excited about that because I'll be able to reach so many more people with this incredible, beautiful information about God's love for us and his desire for us to be well.
Nice. Now, do you go out? Do you do presentations, live presentations, or is it everything online?
Well, everything is online right now because I haven't yet been invited to do live presentations, but I know that's coming. I mean, in-person presentations, it's
Right.
coming.
Right.
But yeah, yeah,
So that's cool. Yeah, that'll be interesting times. That'll be a little bit different for you. Okay, so
it will.
I think when this comes out though, everybody will be able to get your book um, at Caprice Scott Ministries.org, and they'll be able to find it on Amazon and all the regular outlets. If
Oh, yeah.
they have questions, They can get in touch with you, info@capricescottministries.org, to find out everything else that you
Right.
guys offer. You also have a Facebook group, Healing is for You. Okay, people can find that easily enough on Facebook. But
Yes.
something just hit me as you're describing your team. So everything you do is geared towards women? What about the desperate men in this world that need this mindset?
Anybody can join. You
Oh,
know,
okay.
we have guys. We have guys in our group. You know what I think happens, Russell, is that men are less apt to admit they're struggling.
Sure.
But we have men in the ministry as well. We actually have one guy who shares really incredible information who is on our admin team in Healing is for You. And I've got several friends who are also guy friends who are also ministers. And we do, kind of like what you and I are doing today. We also do video presentations and things like that where we talk about relationship with the Lord. So no, men, please come join our group. We want you in our group. You're our brothers in Christ, right? We want you there.
Right. What is there anything else you wanted to talk about today?
I think if I might just say one other thing, I think that one thing that when you and I were talking before was the fact that sometimes when bad things happen, we have a choice of, assuming the very worst and allowing that to make us spiral, or we can say, no, you know what? I'm going to allow this to propel me forward, to change me in good, positive ways. And I think that you had that experience just as I did, whether we had negative things that happened and, God kind of got a hold of us and said, look, you don't have to allow this to keep you down. And I think it's so important for people to realize that you can take something that has been a test and make it your testimony, something that has been a mess and make it your message. We need a purpose in life because
Yeah.
purpose changes everything, right?
Yeah. And we have to get outside of ourselves.
Yes.
That's that's huge. Um, Good, good, good. Well, I'm excited. I think you know, if we need to add more stuff later on down the road, we'll add more stuff. We can always get back together and have another conversation. But this has been awesome. I appreciate your time, uh, and I know this is going to bless people that hear it. So let's I'll have all the information on Caprice's website and pages in the notes. Please share this with your friends, and don't forget all my stuff at russelljonespeaks.com. If you're a parent or grandparent or mentor to a 10 to 15-year-old, check out our 60-day interactive transformational video series, Top Secrets of Success for Kids and Parents. It's amazing. It will equip and encourage parents and kids. Yes, russelljonespeaks.com. Get on our email list, jump on a call with me, and in the words of the inimitable Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, take your vitamins, and you'll never go wrong. Then you can go and make it a great day. Bye for now.